Okay, so this is a video to go over Form 2, which we called yesterday in our FRQ the yellow form. Um, so we have assumed that the United States economy is currently experiencing a recessionary output gap with a real GDP that is $180 billion below the full employment. So you had to graph that first. And then we also saw that in Part B, the government was going to enact expansionary fiscal policy and that the MPC was zero point 0.9. So for part number one, it says that they're going to opt to cut personal income taxes, and you had to calculate the size of the tax cut that would be required to bring the nation to full employment. So everybody yesterday had to work with the tax multiplier a little. So I'm going to bounce over to the answer key so that you can see that and part two about how that would be impacted on the graph or reflected on the graph. So first, oops, I lost it for a second. Pardon me. Okay, so for number two, again, we're starting off with a recessionary gap. So PLE and YE, aggregate demand is going to be over here to the left of full employment. You're going to get 2 points for putting that aggregate demand in the correct location, and then the long run to the right of it. The size of the recessionary gap was $180 million. So $180 million equals the change in taxing times the -9 taxing multiplier. Again, the tax multiplier and the spending multiplier add up to 1. So the spending multiplier in this question was actually 10. So this one's -9. By dividing -9 by 180 million, we see that we need to have a $20 million tax cut in order to bring the country back to full employment. And on the graph, we're shifting it and it has to intersect on the line. And that's what full employment is. So you're going to get 1 point for each of those. Part three asked you to comment on three different things. The three different things having to do with how would they be impacted by this change in aggregate demand. So if we started in a recession, how would wages change? Well, in the short run, nominal wages are sticky. So if prices are going up, even if it's going from a recession to that full employment place, prices are going up. That means that real wages are going to fall in the short run. Cyclical unemployment is going to go down because the aggregate demand line is shifting to the right. And therefore, there would be no more people cyclically unemployed. Transfer payments are going to decline because now that people are working, unemployment insurance and other sort of low income safety net government assistance programs are going to decline. So those would also be declining as well. These are three things that students struggle with. It's one of the things that we want you to practice with in these hypothetical situations and not just sort of regurgitate facts about them, but to know what transfer payments are and to know why they would or wouldn't increase or decrease. Going back to part four, it says, suppose that the government opted to spend money instead of cutting taxes. Would the change in government spending be equal to, greater than, or less than the tax cut? Well, you should know already that it would take less spending to get the economy back to full employment than the numerical figure in the tax cut. So it would be less than, and it would be an $18 million increase in spending in order to do that. And one of the reasons why it would be smaller is because people are going to save some of their disposable income from a tax cut. So therefore, you have to tax people by a larger numerical figure. Then suppose we went all the way back to the beginning. And instead of doing that expansionary fiscal policy, the government just let this economy alone and they laissez-faire it. What would happen? Well, if we look back at the original graph, prices were lower than they would be if it was at full employment. So when you think about